Mark Turner, president of the Gilroy Chamber of Commerce, and we're continuing our virtual legislative summit. And today we have with us the Honorable Marie Blankley, the mayor of Gilroy. Marie, thanks for being with us this morning. We appreciate you participating.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, let's go ahead and jump right in. We've got a number of things, of course, that Gilroy is dealing with. This is probably one of the most difficult year. What a year to take over as mayor, huh?
I know. No kidding.
Of all time.
No kidding.
It's been a tough year, and this is what leadership is really all about. And so we certainly appreciate your commitment and dedication to this community and all that you've really led the council and the city through. It's been a difficult year for everyone, individuals, businesses, and the city as well. Can you tell us from your perspective, where's the city at? How is the budget and the reserves? Can you just kind of give us an overview of that?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, it has been quite the difficult year, that to say the least. We last July reduced our workforce by 20% in order to address what we knew was coming. Luckily or gladly, I'm here to say that because we did have an economic uncertainty reserve, that has allowed us to not have to do any further reductions. So we're still surviving on the 20% workforce reductions from last July. We received about $900,000 of CARES Act money last year, and we were able to divvy all of that out to our community for all kinds of different things, be it rent assistance, be it small business grants, be it landlord tenant dispute assistance, be it motel stays for people who were unable to isolate. And on top of that, we took about $270,000 from our general fund to go directly into our local nonprofits, primarily for food assistance and shelter that people needed. So very proud of all the things we have done. It's just, wow, where does that leave us today? Well, the $5 million economic reserve is gone. So we need to replenish that $5 million. We are expecting in this fiscal year 2021 a budget shortfall of $3 million. So that brings you to $8 million. That thankfully, we can look forward to this next CARES Act assistance that is planning to come to Gilroy and take care of those two things. It's the financial side of it is, of course, quite the challenge. But today, it's that $3 million shortfall that we need to address and the $5 million uncertainty reserve. And on top of that, for people who don't know about what CalPERS has done, that unfunded debt for the city of Gilroy alone has increased by $10 million because of their inability to meet their investment expectations too. So the financial challenges are great.
And with regards to that, the last item you talked about, as far as the PERS, what's the plan? Is there a plan that's out there that the city?
No, I mean, we could put some of the CARES Act money could go to help us try to keep up with some of that. I don't think it will, because we have just too many other things and we have to prioritize the more immediate need. And that there is a debt that's going to continue to rise. We will make the minimum payments like all cities are doing right now. You're just making the minimum payment there and the rest of it just keeps growing. But we did set up a particular kind of trust. It's called a 115 trust that enables this council, and some other cities have done it as well, to put some money aside to at least address each year. So we will do that, but you know, it's not big dollars. And I'm sorry to say that $1 million isn't big dollars when it comes to things like this, right? But that is what we do, is we just put a little bit of money into this trust so that it's there when there's a real crunch, because those minimum payments have to be made.
Got it. Thank you for that. And I know that, of course, a number of city staff have been working remotely, much like most other people. What does it look like as far as the city coming back to their offices and being opened again?
Yeah, so I'm in here by myself, and I go into my mayor's office by myself. It really is skeleton town still. We think August 1st. That is not a date that has been set in stone. It's just what it looks like today. It seems to be in line with what our neighboring cities and the rest of the cities in this county are looking at. Hopefully it could be sooner than that, but for right now, we're preparing for an August 1st opening.
Well, you had mentioned earlier about the needs, and there certainly are plenty of needs in our community. A couple of the things we want to talk about now is both the housing situation and homelessness. We'll go with housing first. We are certainly talking about three different, I think, apartment complexes that are being considered for Gilroy. one at the transit development at the VTA parking lot, which is about 120 units. I think the one over by Safeway Taco Bell area is about 100 to 150, and then at Santa Teresa and First Street, looking about 100 units there. These are all categorized as affordable housing, anywhere from extremely low, very low, and affordable. Can you tell us what is with those three developments? How will that address the RHNA requirements that we are held to, and how will this help in other areas with regards to homelessness?
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm gonna start with a little bit of framework on where we are, where Gilroy is with RHNA. And so the RHNA cycle that we are in, it's an 8-year cycle, and it ends on December 31st of 2022. All right, that's the cycle we're in. Gilroy, as of the beginning of 2021, is short by 97 units in the very low income category. As compared to Morgan Hill, let's say, at the same snapshot in time, 193 short in the very low income category. Now, both cities, of course, have plans for how we're going to make sure that those get addressed before December 2022. But as of the beginning of 2021, those were the numbers actually in place. 193 short in Morgan Hill, 97 in Gilroy. So the next RHNA cycle, we're already in process of allocating, and we expect hundreds more than that to be in the next 8-year cycle assigned to us. So we know this is something we need to address, and the state of California, in passing SB 330, has made it so that a lot of the bureaucracy is taken away for housing projects that come in meeting those goals. And the two that I'm going to talk about here today, two that you mentioned, fall under that SB 330 category. So Gilroy has now, we've approved what we call Hecker Pass Apartments. That is on the corner of Santa Teresa Boulevard and First Street. And that is a 100-unit affordable housing project. Does that mean very low income? No, it just means below market, affordable. And those 100 units will come with 5 3-story buildings, and another building, a 1-story building that will be amenities, office, exterior lighting with landscaping and all that kind of stuff around it. It'll also have 201 parking spaces to it. So that development alone is not going to help us with the 97 very low income houses that we need. The next one, which is behind Taco Bell near Safeway, is 120 units, and 12 of those, also 100% affordable. 12 of those will be very low income. So that 12 will go towards our 97. Then we have the VTA proposal, which isn't exactly a proposal yet. They're still formulating what that proposal is going to be. And their second meeting is tomorrow night. By the time people hear this, it'll be past tense. But they want to build transit-oriented development, which is high-density housing, much of which will be, hopefully, very low income housing. And I hope the public understands that very low income doesn't mean here in Santa Clara County, it's not all that low, actually. It's just very low compared to the median of housing here. And they are hoping to build between 100 and 150 units. We don't know how many. They haven't quite said because they haven't figured it out yet. They don't know exactly how many stories they're going to be able to go up between 8th and 9th Street. So I personally am hopeful that that one is going to meet the rest of what we need in this particular RHNA cycle, but then will come the next one there. The next one will come after that.
And in both these, of course, they aren't slated only for Gilroy residents. People from outside the area certainly have access to these living units as well. So it's a matter of how people qualify based on the criteria.
Exactly, how they qualify based on criteria, right? Okay. But presumably, because it's in Gilroy, you would think that people in Gilroy would know about it first, would get to it first. I sure hope so. But the obligation we have is to provide the housing.
Got it. Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, as we then talk about homeless, we know certainly that there are philosophies out there that say just provide housing, and we know that there's so many different categories. In the research I've done, I could probably come up with 6 to 8 different categories, and it's difficult to address every category the same way. But with what we're dealing with here in Gilroy, what's the best way to address the crisis we're facing with our homeless population?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I want to correct myself in a statement I just made. I heard myself say our obligation is to provide housing. It is not the city's obligation to provide housing. It is our obligation to make sure that it can be provided. We have to allocate the land for it, right? And that. Okay. So I want to correct myself there. You know, getting housing, the housing shortage and addressing the skyrocketing price of housing absolutely has something to do with the difficulties people face in getting a house. I mean, when you've had decades of cities listening to their constituents who once they have a home don't want any other homes in the area, you know, then you have a situation where you're artificially limiting supply, right? And artificially limiting supply makes demand grow, and demand growing makes prices rise, and that only benefits people who already have a home. So you end up in this housing shortage situation that was somewhat caused by, you know, going down that road instead of letting the market build and sell the homes that the market's willing to bear. So I think SB 330 passed for that reason, putting all this pressure on cities to no longer do that, but getting companies and developers to build what's affordable is what's been the challenge, because they still need to turn some kind of profit, or what's the motivation for them to do it. And I know that in my discussions with our state representative, the difficulties, the conflicting desires is that in order to build something truly affordable, you can't build it with prevailing wage. And you've got prevailing wage out there that, you know, our labor groups are the ones that push for that. And that's understandable, right? You want living wages for anybody who's working, but that is in contradiction to then being able to make something affordable. And so to let something be priced to be built outside of those prevailing wages, assuming that you have people willing to work for less to make something affordable, is then in direct competition with our, you know, labor groups that are normally wanting everything to, you know, I think everybody understands what I'm trying to say. And it's just a conflict that we all have to keep in mind, that prevailing wage ups the price of things. And when you're talking about an affordable housing project, it's a big reason why you don't end up seeing more of those. So what did we do in Gilroy for homeless? We consider this such a big issue that we dedicated 3 council members specifically to do a deep dive into what actually can we do at the city level. Because mind you, we've got state level, county level, city level, where we do not have our own social services department. There's no way we could fund such a thing. So that deep dive has been going on for a few months. And just this week, we got a report at our last council meeting that let us know a few things that we can pursue. And I'll share one of the things that I think we're going to be able to do is a safe parking area. Now, this is not the same as sanctioned parking. Again, I don't want the public to confuse the two. Sanctioned parking is anybody can park there, and we let anything happen and we just let it be. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a program where people have to be willing to be in the system, willing to be contacted, willing to follow certain rules that keep the area safe for not only themselves, but the people around them. It's controlled because you have a certain number of vehicles there, a certain number of people at a time. And the hope, of course, is when they're there, that's where you make the contact for all the other services that they need and help them move through the system into housing. So that will be something for sure that I think for sure that we end up going with.
And that particular program you're talking about, is that the model, of course, that we're aware of in our area?
We have a model, yes, in the Gilroy Morgan Hill area, we have a model at the Morgan Hill Bible Church. Mm-hmm. And what we've learned from that model is 2 things, or at least maybe I should say that I've learned. One is, of course, the city put some money in towards that to operate it. It's actually operated by a nonprofit agency, but the city funds a portion of that, which Gilroy could certainly do for one in Gilroy. And the other is that you have an agreement with the property owner who's letting you do this on their property. You know, and that agreement needs to be adhered to, because as Morgan Hill Bible Church has discovered in the time since they've been doing this, there have been 1 or 2 issues that have not been in accordance with their agreement. And then you get people coming in from the outside trying to argue that Morgan Hill Bible Church should let that go. And that's where, no, if there's an agreement, it's on both sides. It needs to be operated the way the agreement went so that these things can be successful, so that more people will want to participate in them. We'll have greater numbers of areas. And this could be the start of something, really great if everybody would just abide by their side of their agreement.
And where it stands now for Gilroy is, of course, whether it's the ad hoc committee or whatever group will begin to work with some private landowners.
Correct.
They would then provide that land for the overnight parking.
That's exactly right. So we're in the process of having to identify where that would be. And there are other things too. They're also looking into what would it mean maybe for the city to help with funding on things that are drug rehab sort of thing, or job training, because there are organizations providing these things, and with some money towards the outreach to come down here, you can get people into programs. But again, this all assumes you've got people who are ready to get the help that they need.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point. And I think part of what we all either believe or know is that there is an element within the homeless community. There is a criminal element that really needs to be dealt with at a higher level. And we don't know when the county, or if the county is going to, we know they've been releasing inmates. When will they be taking inmates again? We don't know. But how do we deal with that side of it when law enforcement's required to do something about it?
I know. Well, that's going to have to be something the voters do something about, because right now our law enforcement is doing what they can within the law. And the fact, pandemic aside, never mind the pandemic, just the fact that certain types of crimes, petty thefts, just thefts, things that real life things that happen day to day, we can't put a stop to, because even though you got the person on camera and it's not a matter of not knowing who it was, it just turns out to be a slap on the wrist type thing, who's released the next day to do the same thing all over again. And it's gotten so bad, and again, this has nothing to do with the pandemic. It's gotten so bad that many of our local businesses in Gilroy don't even bother to call the police anymore when things like that happen. When someone comes in and tries to either hooks into their water or their electricity, or is actually going in and stealing something, breaking windows, things like that, because nothing can get done. You get the satisfaction of making a call, but that's as far as it goes. So it's going to have to be society that changes how we deal with things.
Yeah, and that's a sign of total frustration by a business owner who just says there's no sense in calling. And
exactly.
We know that police officers too are very frustrated by what they're limited to do. And we know that you go back to Prop 47 and Prop 57, where
exactly.
the voters are the ones who approved those propositions, which lowered these crimes.
Exactly. That's
really
exactly it.
Like you said,
I would still tell the public, though, please do still call in. You may think nothing happens, but the benefit to actually making the call is then we have record of how many times, so that we have that history to say, look at what these laws have caused. Look at how many times the same thing has had to come over and over and over again. So I hope people do still call.
Well, that's a good point. And we certainly will encourage that everywhere we get a chance to do so. As we now move into economic recovery, there are some good things and some hopeful things that are happening for Gilroy. I know that you're deeply involved with. So why don't we talk about a couple of those items? Number one being the Sharks Ice.
Yeah. So this is where it gets a little fun, I would say, because now you're talking about things where the light, the positive things. And we have a sports park here in Gilroy that we would love to have the Sharks anchor for us. And they are very interested in building 2 ice rinks in our sports park. So that's what we're looking at. And it takes 18 to 24 months for them. Once, if this is a go, we get to things, then within 2 years, we ought to see those ice rinks actually there. So we're in those negotiations now. And I'm really happy to say that they're actually happening. We are actually negotiating. This isn't just time waiting. We're meeting regularly. And with each meeting, we get a lot farther along. So, with any luck, we'll have something in the next couple of months to at least share with the public. That's what I'm hoping, as to where this might be going for that particular project.
Well, and what's exciting is when we first began these discussions about making Gilroy an outdoor recreation destination, which was probably less than a year ago, when this all really kind of got formalized, we've made some great progress. And I know, Mayor, you've been directly involved with negotiations with the Sharks. So certainly appreciate all that you're doing on that front. Now, we also have a project called 536. Can you share any information with us
Yeah,
about?
there's talk we're going to rename that because everyone's getting tired
Yeah.
of hearing just 536. What the heck is that? But whatever we call it, 536. Yeah, that one's moving along too, because that one's even farther along because we actually have two companies, and I know we're going to be narrowing down to one soon to actually start some kind of recreational development there. It's called 536 because it's 536 acres that the city owns, including the 70 acres that are occupied by the Gilroy Gardens theme park. So what we're trying to do is make better use of the whole 536 acres instead of just that 70-acre park in order to attract people to Gilroy. And this is a super good start. It will be outdoor, recreation kinds of things, and the specifics of which we don't exactly know. But again, we've put out that request for proposal. We've got two companies. We'll probably narrow down to one soon, and then we'll just work with that one as to what we can actually see.
Yeah, there's some great things that are happening for Gilroy with long-term economic sustainability with these two projects. So we're very excited to be a part of that and
Yes.
to kind of cheer you on as you go through those negotiations.
I would like to say that on top of developing those two lands, we get an awful lot of sales tax money from auto dealers. They are our largest contributor. And so in order to help with that, now, of course, in the pandemic year, I mean, sales tax is what we have lost the most of. But what we are trying to do, and what the city council just recently passed, is an incentive to attract both existing and new auto dealers, existing ones to expand, new auto dealers to come to Gilroy by refunding their permit fees as they generate the sales tax for the city. So they generate X amount of sales tax. We take, say, 20% of what they generated for us, and we refund that 20% of their permit fees, and go up until their permit fees for that expansion are refunded. And so I'm very hopeful that that is going to help with our auto mall area. And we now have a Tesla presence in Gilroy. It's not a dealership, but it's a presence. And we're in a great location. Gilroy's in a great location for visibility. So I'm hopeful that that's going to really help too, especially at a time when retail shopping is going down.
Well, true. And these incentives that the council just recently passed does make the city of Gilroy a little bit more competitive with other communities.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. That's what I want to say.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks.
So our last hot topic is something that a Tesla car might drive on, and that is our roads and our streets. And we know we have some challenges there. Can you tell us what the city is doing to address our deteriorating streets?
Oh boy, I know. Any Gilroy resident watching this is going to go, is going to have some street that's top of their mind, going, when are you going to get to that street? When are you going to get to that street? We have quite a few failed streets. I mean, failed means, really bad shape. You can't just go and patch it up. And everyone in Gilroy knows this. It's been an issue for a long time. What I got to say upset me to find out when I got on the council in 2018, and that's right then, beginning of 2018 was when, Measure B passed in end of 2016. But if you'll recall, it was a year of litigation before any monies were actually released. So by the time Gilroy got any money, it was right when I got on the council, and the amount that we were getting, and still are, from Measure B and SB1 combined, is 1.8 million. And as soon as we get that money, right, we get 1.8, we take that amount that we were already using towards our streets and put it somewhere else, because there's just always, requests and pressure to fund this and fund that. And so in the end, the streets are more and more underfunded, even though you just did something and the voters passed something to add money to it. It didn't mean, well, here, we'll give you the 1.8, so now you can use the 1.8 you were using for something else. No, what you were using was never enough. This is supposed to get you to where your streets are no longer failing. And so I'm glad to say, at one of our most recent, I don't know if it was a council meeting or a study session, but we had not only council consensus, but actual unanimous to say, okay, we're going to put money towards our streets, enough money where they cannot continue to decline, and actually with the hope that we'll go up just a little bit, but 5 PCI points, pavement condition index points. So hopefully we're putting a stop to the continued deterioration. whether or not we can exceed, how much we can exceed in PCI remains to be seen. But that number that we need to invest annually in our streets is $4 million. So I just said 1.8 is about what we get in assistance from these other sales tax measures. So the difference, we got to fund from our own city budget. And that's what I'm hoping to see changed. And the proof will be when we pass our budget that, you know, we don't end up with a council that diverts that. So I'm trying to get people to pay attention to what your council members are doing.
Well, and that's a good point. And as you talked about the PCI numbers, of course, 70 is the goal.
Right.
If you lower that number from there, the streets start to deteriorate. And then the money you're putting into them only keeps them at a lower level without improving them.
Exactly. 70 should be the minimum of where you want to be. And Gilroy had gotten down to 67, which we could argue wasn't too far below that. But then if you use that as an excuse to continue the fact that you're not bringing that back up again, well, it's going to keep going down. And that's what it did. The last report was 62. You know, and the next one, if we did nothing, if we just kept the way we're going, would be down in the 50s. And then the deferred maintenance cost rises exponentially the longer you let that continue. So that it's even continued this long is very upsetting to me, because streets are an essential city service. And I put my CPA hat on and I just say, look, you got to fund your essential city services first. That your police, your fire, your water, your sewer, these are the things that have to come first. If you've got money after that, then you can go to the things that are nice to fund. You want your parks, you want your trails, you want your bike lanes, lots of things you want. And then all these things we're talking about with homelessness and things you want to do. But the essential city services cannot come after all that. They have to come first. And so how our streets got to this, I'm hoping to change.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. And I appreciate your time here today. And it's good to know that there's a plan for our streets, and we'll be looking forward to seeing some improvement there. But Mayor, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us for our virtual legislative summit. We appreciate your time and for for your leadership in our community as well.
Thank you. And thank you to the Gilroy Chamber of Commerce.